Hi there, thrill seekers. That was Public Image, or at least my attempt at copying Keith Levine's guitar part from the song Public Image by the band Public Image Limited. It is a deceptively simple guitar part made of mostly these weird two-note chords, or sometimes three-note chords, and it is hard to play. At least for me it is. I've played things that are much more complex that were in some ways easier to play, but that thing is like I don't know, getting it just right is a bear, and I didn't get it just right. So there you go. That was my attempt at Public Image. So what I would like to talk to you about is something that kind of arose spontaneously during one of my talks when I was on my recent tour of Europe, and it's a concept that I'm calling the center of gravity, and I'm using the term center of gravity borrowed from one of my favorite books called Buddha is the Center of Gravity by Joshu Sasaki Roshi. And maybe I shouldn't even say the book is by Joshu Sasaki Roshi. Maybe I should just say it's credited to Joshu Sasaki Roshi, because from what I understand, Sasaki Roshi never liked the book very much, and he forbid? What's the past tense of forbid? Anyway, he forbade? Anyway, he didn't want the book to ever be reprinted, and he didn't allow it to be reprinted. And I just got a new book by Joshu Sasaki Roshi, in which they refer to it as his second book, but I would count it as being his third book if you count Buddha as the Center of Gravity, but apparently they don't count Buddha as the Center of Gravity as being one of Joshu Sasaki's books at all. Anyway, there's a little Sasaki Roshi trivia for you, for whatever it's worth. But anyway, he used that concept, the center of gravity, and I'm using the concept a little bit differently, though. So here it is. Centers of gravity are funny things. In school, you were probably taught that the moon orbits the Earth. But actually, that's not true. The moon and the Earth actually orbit a common center of gravity. And that common center of gravity just so happens to be quite near the center of the Earth. But it's not at the center of the Earth. So the center of gravity between the moon and the Earth, of the moon and the Earth system, I should say, is somewhere just outside the center of the Earth. And so it's a common center of gravity. And that's the way centers of gravity work. The center of gravity of the solar system is not in the center of the sun, I don't think. Somebody can check this up for me. It's somewhere outside of that. It's a common center of gravity that the sun and the other planets all orbit. And it always works like that. So thinking about this as I was giving a talk, I was thinking how the talk, if it's a good one, when I'm giving a talk, the talk isn't really coming from me and going out there to the peoples in the audience. If it's a middling or even a bad talk, those are coming from me and going out to the people in the audience, where it's just sort of coming out of the font of memory and imagination and whatever else is, crammed inside my noggin. And I just spew that out on the audience as a kind of a form of entertainment. That can happen, and sometimes that's okay, but that's not what happens when it's a really good talk. When it's a really good talk, it's coming out of this center of gravity that might be somewhat, as in the moon and the Earth system, might be somewhat closer to the center of me, of this guy, but it's not actually inside of me. I feel like it's floating out there somewhere a little bit in front of me and somewhere between me and the audience. And because it's a little closer to me, I'm speaking metaphorically, because it's a little closer to me, the sound of most of the talk happens to come out of my mouth. But it's not generated by me. It's generated by all of us who are there, who happen to be there at the time. And in fact, sometimes the best parts of the talk are coming from the audience in the form of questions, sometimes in the form of just simple questions. Sometimes it's just a one-sentence question that somebody in the audience happens to ask that prompts a really good, lively response. So I don't just mean, sometimes somebody will stand up and decide to make a statement or something, and usually that's a problem. It's a problem for any public speaker when somebody decides to hold forth during a talk, because that interrupts things, and please don't do that. But sometimes somebody comes up with such a good question that it moves things forward, and it makes it possible for the talk to become really, really good. So that's a great thing when that happens. And I think that's one of the reasons that the Buddha was so... He revered Sangha. And for those of you who might be new to Buddhist terminology, Sangha just means the group of Buddhists. So there's three things that Buddhism reveres: Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And Buddha is usually thought of as the historical person Buddha, but it could mean sort of more cosmic sort of sense of Buddha as a cosmic sort of force in the universe. Dharma is the teachings which come out of either that cosmic force or the person, and the Sangha is the group, and the Dharma comes out of the person and the group. From that arises the Dharma. So that's why a lot of it appears in dialogue, and a lot of the great Buddhist scriptures are in dialogue. And if you look at the Advaita Vedanta tradition, which I quite enjoy, it's not the Buddhist tradition; it's a Hindu-based tradition, but a lot of their great works are dialogue. I mean, even the Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, who are probably mythical figures anyway, but it's a dialogue between them. And one of my favorite books of recent history is I Am That by Nisargadatta Maharaj, and that is a series of dialogues between Nisargadatta Maharaj and different people who came and just asked him questions. But those questions prompted answers. And this is always my favorite part of any sort of the things that I do, are being able to answer questions. It's my favorite part of doing these videos, is when people send me good questions, and I always give my email address at the end of every one of these videos. There's something that annoys me, and I'll just give you my little pet peeve, where people will pretend that they don't know how to get a hold of me. This comes up on Twitter, comes up on various social media things, and people act like, oh, I don't, they make these public statements about Brad. There was an article that came out recently about why I had left the Angel City Zen Center, and the person wrote this article as if he had no idea how to ask me directly why. And if he'd ever watched any of my videos, which he does reference in fact, he knew that the reason he knew that I'd left the Angel City Zen Center is I talked about it in one of my videos. If he'd ever watched to the end of that video, he would have seen bw@hardcorezen.info, my email address, at the end of every damn video. So I always put that there, and if you ever want to ask me a question, just send it there, and I love answering people's questions about Buddhism and about practice. So that's my favorite part, because I feel like these dialogues allow that center of gravity to occur, and then we both get to find out what the answer is, because sometimes I don't even know how these questions will be answered until somebody asks them. It's not like sitting in there, just waiting. It doesn't happen until somebody prompts it, until the encounter happens, because it just isn't there until it happens. This life doesn't work the way you think it does. Sometimes these encounters are where the actual practice happens. This is another reason I like Dokusan. When I have these one-to-one meetings, which I do during retreats, and people come to me with their various questions about practice, and I can answer them. I really enjoy doing that. So that's another way that this happens. So that's the center of gravity, and that's why I really enjoy visiting the center of gravity with groups of people or with individuals who come and ask me questions. So there you go. That's my talk about the center of gravity, and I hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, That's what I wanted to say about the center of gravity. If you want to donate to make my center of gravity even bigger by making me able to buy more food and get fat, that was not a very good transition, you can go to the URL you're seeing on your screen below, which is hardcorezen.info. No, it's hardcorezen. Yeah, hardcorezen.info/donate. That's right. hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main and usually only ways of making a living, even though I did get paid for most of my events in Europe. That won't sustain me until next fall when I get to go to Europe again. I still depend on your support for my main way of making a living. I think I said that already. So I appreciate your support, but as always, this is offered for free, so you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. We will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. Laters, Bisels. Hey Ziggy, what do you think of the center of gravity? Hey Ziggy, look at the camera for the folks. What do you think about the center of gravity? Oh, you got a cute center of gravity. Hey Furball. Alright, he doesn't want to look at the camera today. See you later, Ziggy. Alright, bye.